Hello all you game fans and welcome to another episode of Greenlight Highlights brought to you by the steamchamber.com. I'm Lord Elemental and today we have another 6 fantastic games to feature from Steam's Greenlight system. Now the first of the games that we are going to feature this week is Road Redemption by Dark Seas Games, and this is a modern reworking of the classic Road Rage motorcycle combat games. The Road Rage games were great, challenging, skills-based games back from the days of the Mega Drive / Genesis and the N64, and were really just simply motorcycle racing games with added weaponry, but it was less about your power-up style weaponry in games like Mario Kart and more about your close range, close combat mechanics such as baseball bats and chains. Road Redemption is actually currently still on Kickstarter, and I would normally prefer not to feature a game that hasn't been funded as of yet. However, they're about halfway through and have about just over a third of their total. But there is a lot of interest in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if their funding was to jump towards the end at some point. Now this game does actually have the backing of the original Road Rage creators and is not some low budget game. I mean, the people working for Dark Seas Games have worked on a lot of big games in the past, such as God of War Ascension, Epic Mickey, Star Wars The Old Republic, NBA 2K10, Commandos 3, God of War 3, and plenty of others. They've already said that the game will ship with full controller support, and the game will also be released on the Wii U as well as Steam. Now, it's not just as simple as racing and bashing a button to hit people. The fighting system involves counters and parries, and even though your opponents might have stronger weapons than you, then you've always got advantages up your sleeve because you can do things like try and force your opponent off the road or into oncoming traffic. This game is primarily, though, about melee weapons. There are guns in the game, however, ammo is rather scarce, and there is no auto-aiming. It's all free aim. They've already announced at least 6 different game modes. There is room for more and expansion. They've actually asked fans to suggest different game modes to them. Some of the modes already included are Combat Race, which is your typical mission, a free-for-all between several bikers. You have to be the first person to either get to a point or be the last alive. There are also modes like Police Escape, where you have to outrun the police and lead your fellow club members to safety. And there are also Convoy Assaults and Assassin modes as well, to name a few. There's also a multitude of weapons included in the game, and the game is already looking fairly fully featured. If you do like the look of it, please do go check out the Greenlight page, but also do take a minute to check out the Kickstarter page as well, because they're both just as important as each other at the moment. And while I'm sure even if they don't get fully funded, I'm sure they'll find some sort of way to get this game out, because it's got a lot of support and it's got it's got a little community behind it already. Right, moving on. Next up we have Papers, Please, which is a bit of an odd one. This is being billed as a dystopian document thriller. Now, this is created by one guy, Lucas Pope, also known as Ducope, and the game is set in the fictional communist state of Arstotzka, which has just ended a 6-year war with its nearest neighbour and reclaimed its rightful half of a border town called Gretzin. And in this game you play an immigration inspector, and it's your job to control the flow of people entering your side of the border of Gretzin from the neighbouring countries. So along with the throngs of immigrants and visitors who are looking for work, you also have spies, terrorists and smugglers of various sorts. Now, it's your job, using the documents that are provided by the travellers, as well as various other things at your disposal, such as search and fingerprint systems, to decide who can and can't enter the country of Arstotzka and who will be turned away and arrested. It's still a work in progress, this one. There is a beta available for download for either Windows or Mac from the game's website. And there's a real buzz about this game at the moment on Steam's Greenlight and on the Steam community in general. There are quite a lot of discussions based on this game at the minute, and it's had a hell of a lot of comments despite being on the Greenlight system since only the 11th of April. Now this one, I have no doubt that this game will be greenlit. I really do believe that. Do go and give it a like anyway, or a vote yes rather. It's always nice and refreshing to see something different on Steam, especially if it's something that actually requires you to think, and also makes you think about the world in general. People like to think of games as quite vacuous at times and silly. However, games are quite capable of approaching some quite heavy subjects at times and doing it in a tasteful and interesting and yet still fun way. So that's Papers, Please, and I really do think this is one to keep an eye out for. Next up we have MechKnight Chronicles Knightfall, which is a 4-player online co-op brawler game which will be releasing on PC, Mac and Linux if it gets greenlit. This one's also a very recent addition to Greenlight, however there's not a whole lot of buzz around it yet. They're keeping everyone very up to date. There's been several announcements since they put it up a couple of weeks ago. However, there's not a huge amount of comments on the game's page at the moment. Now this one did garner some interest over at PAX recently. It has a 4-player co-op mode and a straight up 4-player battle mode. It has 10 choosable players rather than character creation. However, there are customizable stats and you can choose your own path throughout the game. This one's very much influenced by things such as Transformers and 80s cartoon television, as well as some anime and mecha, and is very evocative of things like classic Capcom games. It's a really nice looking game. It looks really polished. It's fairly simple brawler combat along with the boss fights that you would expect from the genre. It's got a nice animation style and the graphics are quite nice. It has 2.5D visuals and the sound and music sound fantastic at the moment. Now there's been a slew of brawler games lately on Steam, whether it be through Greenlight or general release, including the very recent Sacred Citadel, which we reviewed recently. However, these games are always easy to jump into and there's always room for more. If you do like the look of it, then go and check out their Greenlight page or their website. They do actually, they've put up some Let's Plays themselves, so you can get a good look at the game and see how the game plays rather than just simple gameplay trailers. Right, next up we have Among the Sleep, which is from developer Greenlight, which is a small, relatively young dev team. They've only got one other title under the belt. This is the first large title they've done. Another title of theirs, The Plan, was also on Greenlight, and it was also released as a free download on their website. Now, Among the Sleep is a multi-platform game. It's going to be on Windows, Linux and Mac, and they are talking about releasing it on other websites such as GOG.com. The game is another first-person horror adventure game, but this one has quite a unique dynamic. This game is played from the perspective of a 2-year-old child, which really adds something new to the game. Everything's much larger than you, and they're able to play with some interesting concepts. So essentially, you are a 2-year-old child, you wake up alone with strange things going on in the house. Rather than it just being a standard horror game, it could actually be that there's nothing strange going on at all. It's just, because you're a 2-year-old child, it's your imagination playing tricks on you. So it's the way, they haven't said whether there's horrific things going on or if it's the way a child interprets things as horror and how a child adapts to fear and things going on around him. Now, like all of these games, this is heavily focused on exploration, interactivity and atmosphere. In terms of interactivity, they have a full-on physics-based environment when it comes to puzzles and items. And when it comes to exploration, everything's much different because you are a 2-year-old at the end of the day, so you are much lower to the ground. Things seem a lot larger because they are a lot larger in relation to your body and how you interact with things. When it comes to interacting with things, you have to take that into account as well. Now, in terms of atmosphere, the fact that you're playing the part of a 2-year-old child changes the perspective far more, as what ordinarily wouldn't be scary in a game like this all of a sudden becomes very frightening and very terrifying. Even looking at the video footage, you sort of become wrapped up in this perspective. Everything's so much bigger than you, everything towers above you. You do start to feel smaller, you do start to feel much more vulnerable. Now, also like Amnesia, there are enemies in the game, and much like Amnesia, rather than traditional combat, this game does rely more on you hiding. This is yet another Kickstarter game. It's at 45% funding with still 22 days left, and there's a lot of discussion and a lot of comments regarding the game on the Greenlight page, so this one looks fairly healthy in terms of funding. And it looks pretty far along in the development process as well, so I assume this game will probably make it regardless. Now, because it's done from such a different perspective, for me I think this one's really quite interesting, and I will at some point try and get hold of an early build of this game if I can and bring you a video. It's just a matter of me talking to developers and seeing what I can work out. Next up is Diversitas from Frozen Studios. Now, this is a space-based sandbox game in which you play the lone survivor of a failed mission to colonize and terraform the planet Diversitas. You're stranded in space after the explosion of one of the engines aboard the ship carrying 250,000 people to the new planet. This game comes with a story and a survival mode, but essentially you have to survive the harshness of space by avoiding the various dangers that lurk there, as well as keep yourself fed and watered. Now, there's plenty of oxygen and food, enough to sustain 250,000 people. However, it has been scattered across space, so it's your job to scavenge for this stuff across a huge radius. And you will also have to work towards building a space station in order to survive. This is very early alpha at the moment. In fact, I think they're calling it alpha, but it's pre-alpha, to be honest. There's a lot of things aren't textured yet. It's very early stages. And there's not a whole lot of buzz about this one yet, as the dev has taken the unusual step of relaunching it on Greenlight. Now, we found this on Greenlight a couple of days ago and planned on putting it in this video. However, when it came to actually recording the video today, we found that the link was dead, and that's because the dev had taken the unusual step of relisting it in order to try and build up a new bit of buzz. Unfortunately, the problem with that is that as a result, he's now killed any conversations that were going on in that previous listing. So the only people that have actually commented, the few comments that have been made on this listing so far, are the people that have actually taken the effort to go and find it. Now, I don't know his reasons for that. Obviously, he's trying to generate a bit more, give himself more of a chance. Unfortunately, he might have actually done himself a little there, because Greenlight isn't based purely on votes. It's not purely a yes voting system. Steam also take community interaction into account. They want to see people interested in it. They don't just want to see lots of yes votes and no comments, no discussions. They want to see community engagement. The game has also only been recently listed on Indiegogo, so I don't know if that's also a case of it's being relisted, or if it just happens to have been listed at this time. There's only one backer so far, but it's only been on there for a day or so. And there are only two tiers. One is $9 to get the game, and an alpha build of the game, and then the other is $25, which gives you an even earlier build of the game and gives you early access. Now, this game has also been known as Frozen Nightmare, so he's also taken the step of changing the name at least once as well. So these are all things that actually sort of, anytime, if you're going to build up a bit of buzz for a game, a bit of recognition for a game, and then change the name, you're going to lose some of that recognition and some of and some of that community engagement. It's the same when you relist it on Greenlight, so perhaps not the best decisions been made. This game's obviously struggling a little to find its audience. However, it looks like a really interesting, promising game. I really like the fact that it's in space, and it has the physics and the dynamics that come with that. I like survival games, and this looks like an interesting new take on survival games. It just needs a bit of interest, and so I've emailed the dev to ask him a few questions, and I will probably put a post up on the website at some point looking at the game in a bit more detail, maybe speak to the dev about playing an early build, and maybe giving you a video of some of the early build of the game at some point. But anyway, do check that one out. I know, it really does need the support, and I do feel it deserves a little bit of help, because it does look like it looks like a really interesting and ambitious project. It just really needs the people to get behind it. Our last game this week is Way to Go from Macrovision Games, which is a really nice little cartoon-based, single-player, team-based tile puzzle game. Now, this one looks as though it's been ported over from tablets. However, they're assuring potential customers that it has been built from the ground up with PC and Linux and Mac in mind. It's got over 400 levels. It's got some great little cartoon animations in between levels. There's a bit of a story mode. There are 4 play modes available. It's got Steam achievements, and it's got some great music that actually really reminds me of the first Crash Bandicoot game as well. There is a demo available for this one, which you'll find a link for below as always. Anyway, a really nice little way to wrap up this week's Greenlight highlights video. I just want to say thank you very much for watching and for giving us a chance and giving Greenlight Games a chance. Please do like, comment and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, as it really does help us grow and helps our videos get seen by more people. It also really helps the Greenlight Games out, because that is the reason that I'm doing these highlights videos. These videos get less views than any of the other videos I produce. However, I'm producing these not for the views so much as I am producing them to actually try and help get some of these Greenlight games a bit more recognition.